पानी चाहिए, पानी पौष्टिक पानी है, पानी पानी नहीं है, पाकिस्तान पानी नहीं मिलेगा। गोवा में पानी चाहिए, no water, no water.
This is a video of boomer uncles in London. These proud uncles just achieved world peace, or at least that's what it looks like. The tacky celebration was a result of India suspending the Indus Waters Treaty after the deadly Pahalgam attack last week. This was a deal that literally keeps the river waters flowing between India and Pakistan. And nationalist fever obviously caught on fast. Member of Parliament Nishikant Dubey had this to say. Nehruji, the hero of the agreement to give water to the snake, who, in order to get Nobel Prize in 1960, shed the blood of Indians by giving them water of Indus, Ravi, Base, Chenab, Satluj. Today, Modi ji has stopped the food and water. Pakistanis will die without water. This is the 56-inch chest. Hookah, food and water will be stopped. We are workers of Sanatani BJP. We will kill them after torturing them. Strong words and some very strong feelings. If you are one of those people who is going, Pakistan ko sabak sikha diya, well done Modi ji. Well, you can live in that blissful world of ignorance if you want. You can stop watching right now with a feeling of peak nationalist dopamine fueled bliss. But if you are someone who wants to actually understand what is going on, then this video is for you. This is a video about a 64-year-old treaty between India and Pakistan. This is a video about India suspending that treaty to take revenge on Pakistan. This is a video about whether or not India can turn off the water tap for Pakistan and what might happen if it did. On that, I have a bunch of thoughts. Okay, before we begin, a quick reality check. You can't just suspend a treaty like you're cancelling a Netflix subscription. A treaty is a formal agreement between two or more sovereign states. It's binding under international law, which means even if the government changes, even if prime ministers come and go, the treaty stays. When India signed the Indus Waters Treaty in 1960, it wasn't just Nehru shaking hands with Ayub Khan of Pakistan. It was India as a country giving its word to Pakistan as a country under the supervision of World Bank. And in international law, promises like this matter. In fact, there is a Latin phrase for it. Pacta sunt servanda. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. Pacta sunt servanda? Anyway, it means agreements must be kept. It's a fundamental principle in international law and contract law, meaning that treaties and contracts are binding on parties involved and they must fulfill their obligations in good faith. Think of it like this. Imagine two neighbors, Sharmaji and Varmaji. They agree to share the only water tank in their building. They both sign a contract. Now, even if Sharmaji sells the flat to you, then you as the new owner still has to honor the water sharing deal. You can't just wake up one day and say that अरे मुझे नहीं करना है and lock up the tank and stop water supply. Why? Because if you do that, Verma ji can take you to court, the whole building will call you an unreliable chomu, and the next time you ask for help like fixing a lift, well, no one will trust you. And you will be left alone and sad during Holi and Ganesh Puja celebrations as well. Breaking the deal doesn't just hurt Varmaji, it hurts you. And it poisons all future relationships that you can have with the building owners. For a country, breaking a treaty without following proper legal steps isn't just a bad look. It damages your credibility globally. And worse, it gives your enemies their own excuse to start breaking other treaties as well. Okay, now that you understand what a treaty is, let's get to the one that this video is about, which is in the news, Indus Waters Treaty. To understand that, I need to tell you about Look at this map. We have 6 rivers, the Ravi, Base and Satluj. These are eastern rivers. Then there is the mega river Indus, that's why it's called the Indus Waters Treaty. 2 smaller ones, Jhelum and Chenab. These are western rivers. The Indus Rivers Treaty says that India will control the eastern rivers and Pakistan will have control over the western ones. But if you notice, all of these rivers flow from India to Pakistan, which means we have the upper hand literally when it comes to water supply. You see, the treaty wasn't exactly a clean-cut deal. India can still use the western rivers for domestic use, irrigation and hydroelectric project, but it can't stop, divert or significantly alter the flow which goes into Pakistan. In technical terms, India is allowed non-consumptive use, which means basically you can touch the water, spin turbines with it to generate electricity, grow crops, but you must return it to the river like nothing happened. We can do whatever we want with the eastern rivers though, but not the western ones. This is the main operative part of the treaty, and the treaty does not allow either side to just suspend it or keep it in abeyance, as we are calling it, because they are feeling angry. Article 12 of the treaty says it can only be modified or replaced by another treaty signed and ratified by both India and Pakistan. So, mota, this is what is happening. India owns eastern rivers, Pakistan owns western rivers. India has limited rights on the western rivers, and both sides are supposed to behave like grown-ups and not take the bat away during a gully cricket match saying, "Arey nahi, mere ko nahi khelna hai, mere ko nahi khelna hai." That's what is ideally supposed to happen. But as you already know, we don't live in an ideal world, and things are about to change significantly since last week. And honestly, if you think this sounds complicated now, wait till you hear what happened in the 1960s. Let me tell you about the time when signing the Indus Waters Treaty 64 years ago was no cakewalk. On November 30th, 1960, the Lok Sabha witnessed an intense debate before the Indus Water Treaty was signed. This was back when decisions were taken after hearing what Parliament has to say, unlike right now. Anyway, Congress MP Iqbal Singh from Punjab started the debate, and within minutes, chaos broke out. And the outrage did not come from the opposition, it came from Congress MPs. One by one, MPs from Punjab and Rajasthan stood up and started roasting Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. Iqbal Singh said the treaty would cripple food production in Punjab. H.C. Mathur from Rajasthan said it would devastate water availability in his state. The biggest one came from Ashoka Mehta, a senior Congress leader. He accused Nehru of appeasement and surrender to Pakistan. Basically, in simple terms, he was calling Nehru a sellout. Just like Nishikant Dubey is right now, but in more polite ways. After that, Nehru stood up and defended the treaty. He called the critics narrow-minded and argued that the agreement was a result of long and bitter negotiations with Pakistan. This was true. I mean, it took 9 whole years to negotiate the Indus Waters Treaty, and with the World Bank acting as a broker between the two sides. Nehru pointed out that the water sharing dispute had been festering since 1947, since the partition. He pointed out how there were mini skirmishes and small wars over water sharing in 1948, 1950 and 1952, and how the World Bank had to step in because both India and Pakistan needed these rivers to survive. By the way, the time when all of this was happening was also important. This was the 1950s. This was a time when Pakistan was ruled by a military dictatorship under General Ayub Khan. Both countries were desperately poor and both needed agriculture to lift themselves out of misery. And both needed water in large quantities to make that happen. Given the context, it's understandable why Nehru signed the treaty. Not because he loved Pakistan, but because India desperately needed peace after a really bloody partition. Basically, in hindsight, it might look like a shitty compromise, but in the 1960s, a bad peace deal was still better than another war with Pakistan over water. We had better things to do, more important things like getting out of poverty, improving our agriculture, Things like that. So over the next few decades, both India and Pakistan started, let's say, creatively interpreting the rules of the treaty. Disputes erupted, each side accused other of cheating. And what kind of cheating, you're wondering? Well, dams. After the treaty was signed, Pakistan rushed to build the giant Mangla Dam in Pakistan occupied Kashmir in 1960s, a project that India protested vehemently but couldn't legally stop under the treaty. India, meanwhile, started building run-of-the-river hydroelectric projects like Kishanganga on the Jhelum and Ratle on the Chenab, pushing the limits of its non-consumptive use rights. And every time one side built something, the other side screamed, violation, rule violation, ye nahi chalega. So slowly, what began as an agreement to share water became a contest to outbuild, outblock, and outlawyer each other. And slowly, a simple idea, which is let's share water like grown up countries, well, that became complicated, emotional, and became a political battlefield. You can fight over rivers all you want, you can blame Nehru all you want, but when the crops fail, when the factories shut down, when people start going hungry, that's when the real war begins. That's when we see an Remember the map I showed you? Right now, out of the 100% water going into Pakistan, 80% goes from the western rivers. And out of the 20% that we have control over, we are using 95% of it already. Okay, so now you're probably wondering what happens if India actually goes ahead and turns off or even tightens the tap on the western rivers as well, the ones that we are not supposed to touch. Since the Indus Water Treaty is in abeyance or suspended, we are free to do whatever we want on the western rivers now. So other than the boomer uncles dancing like crazy in London, of course, things can get bad. The answer is simple but terrifying, especially for Pakistan. More than 80% of Pakistan's agriculture depends directly on waters of the Indus Basin. About 90% of their food production is tied to these rivers. If India were to seriously regulate or cut flows, the first casualties would be rice cultivation, cotton farming, textile manufacturing, which, by the way, is Pakistan's biggest export sector. Pakistan's textile industry alone contributes nearly 60% of their total exports. Without reliable water, cotton crops fail. No cotton, no textiles, no money. And it's not just about exports. Pakistan is already teetering on the edge of a massive water disaster. Water availability per person has dropped by 70% in the last 70 years. Today, Pakistan has just 1017 cubic meters per person, which is dangerously close to the global scarcity line of 1000 cubic meters. Its current water storage can cover only 30 days of demand. The global average is 120 days. Add to that, climate change is melting Pakistan's glaciers faster than they can replenish. Rainfall is becoming unpredictable. Between September 2024 and January 2025, Pakistan got 70% less rain and snow than usual. On top of that, outdated leaky water systems are wasting massive amounts of water. The Tarbela Dam, one of Pakistan's biggest ones, is barely 9 feet above dead storage level. In 2022, Pakistan saw catastrophic floods that displaced 33 million people and killed 1,700. That was not a random event, that was a symptom of a broken water management system made worse by climate change. And on top of all of this, Pakistan's relations with India and Afghanistan are becoming even more volatile. Any disruption to Indus water flow threatens not just farms but regional stability. If you look at the overall picture of Pakistan, it's bleak as hell, to put it mildly. 40% of Pakistan's workforce depends on agriculture. Wheat crops are failing. Livestock and fisheries are under threat. Cities like Karachi and Lahore, the biggest ones, are experiencing drinking water shortages. And when food and water run short, guess what comes next? Inflation skyrockets, waterborne diseases spread, public health collapses. So here's the brutal reality. Pakistan is already in a deep water crisis. Even a small tightening of the tap, like raising dam heights by a few meters or creating more storage for India on the western rivers, that could push it to just absolute disaster. But, and this is important, India simply cannot turn off water overnight. As I explained earlier, most of India's dams on the western rivers are run of the river projects. They don't store enough water to block river flows massively. Right now, India can create seasonal disruptions, floods during monsoons, drought pressure during summers, but full scale water control, like Pakistaniyon ko pyasa maar denge sort of situation, yeah, that would require building huge storage dams, intense investment, and it could take at least 10 years. What we can do right now is stop sharing river flow data with Pakistan, which would make it really difficult for them to prepare for floods and droughts. We can also do reservoir flushing on the Kishanganga project, which will increase the life of the dam. It is a method used to clear sediments from reservoirs by flushing water through bottom outlets. That helps it keep it clean by pushing the sediments downstream. The treaty was stopping us from doing that through the year. We could only do it in August. Now we can do it whenever we want. So, to be clear, what is the immediate impact on Pakistan of the suspension of this treaty? Disruptive, painful, economically and politically humiliating. And what is the long-term impact? If India plays the long game and builds the right infrastructure, in the future, we will have immense leverage over Pakistan's economy and literal survival of the people there. It's like keeping your hands on Pakistan's neck and then slowly squeezing it over a period of 10 years. And as you can imagine, if you have hands over someone's necks, that is really uncomfortable for someone else. That person, right? Now I know Sanghi uncles will start salivating and dance like there is no tomorrow hearing me say those last words, especially since I'm describing it in terms of painful, slow asphyxiation. We all know boomer uncles have their own kinks, right? Right? But remember, weaponizing water isn't a one-way street. The bigger question is, can India afford to stop the water? And can we deal with the consequences of what comes next? On that, I have a bunch of thoughts. We started this video with celebrations. Boomer uncles dancing, Nishikant Dube's crude threat, flag waving, the usual nationalistic chest beating. But the thing about water is, it does not dance to anyone's tune. Sure, suspending the Indus Water Treaty hurts Pakistan. It disrupts their agriculture, it hits their economy, it threatens their food security. And yes, if India builds the right dams over the next 10 years, it could gain serious long-term leverage over Pakistan. But water isn't just a weapon. River water systems are like a chain, especially if a river is flowing through multiple countries. In this case, the rivers we are talking about flow through 3 countries, not 2, 3. India, Pakistan and China. And when you pull too hard on one end, you don't always know which other link will snap on the other end. The fallout of all of this can be massive. 1. Pakistan can feel desperate and cornered. It could escalate diplomatically, militarily, and even worse. That can result in human casualties and an intense amount of money being spent on defense. Can Pakistan afford that? No. Can we afford that? Also no. Just developing country problems. 2. China can use the same logic. It controls the Brahmaputra's headwaters and could use the same logic against India in a future crisis and choke our water supply instead. Also note that Indus and Satluj both originate in Tibet. We are downstream from them. It's the Sharmaji Varmaji water tank situation all over again. China also has a card to play here. And 3, because of all this, India's hard-earned reputation as a responsible global power could take a massive hit. If the rest of the world sees that we are willing to break treaties like this, then they would be way more reluctant to sign other treaties with us in the future. There is one thing that must be said here. The future isn't about oil wars. The future is about water wars. As the world experiences a climate crisis and extreme weather events, it is leading to a massive climate migration as well. Entire chunks of desperate people are getting displaced because of floods and droughts. If people in Pakistan get desperate for water, it might increase the chances of them trying to come into India in droves. And that would lead to a lot of problems. This context is important, and I don't think we talk about it enough, because instead of dancing when someone else's water runs dry, we should be asking what happens when someone else controls our water as well. What happens when we face a massive water crisis? The world's rivers aren't pipelines for revenge, they are lifelines for survival. And once you mess with one lifeline, you never really know what are the downstream consequences of that, quite literally. When Nehru signed the Indus Waters Treaty in 1960, he wasn't looking for applause. At least I don't think he was. In fact, his own party people roasted him for it. But the truth is, he pushed through because Nehru was trying to buy peace during that time. Today, by suspending that same treaty, we aren't just punishing Pakistan, we are undoing a choice that was made so long ago, which would prevent future wars from happening. So the big question is, are we ready for the world that comes after this? Right now, you might feel happy about India taking revenge against Pakistan for the brutal Pahalgam attack, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we will be dealing with the actual consequences of this treaty being suspended. And when that happens, the celebrations might turn into protests, angry revolts, cross-border migration, and more terrorism, even war. And that, according to me, does not deserve celebration. Think about it, and I will see you in the next video. Friends, thank you so much for watching this video. I have already done a video on the actual attack that happened in Pahalgam. You can check it out. I will leave a link below. There I basically told you what happened and what was the retaliation we took diplomatically. I wanted to make a larger video on the Indus Waters Treaty, which you just saw. Please do support this channel, please do subscribe and consider supporting me. There is a link below to buy me a coffee. So if you cannot join and become a member or give super chats, then you can also buy me a coffee and support this channel. I really appreciate it. If you like my content, then please do consider supporting me. This is my literal job. So yeah, and I think you should just support your favorite creators in general, don't you? I do it. You should too. Anyway, thanks for watching.